Hi everyone, it's Nicole here, the Harmonious Hippie. I hope everyone is doing well and having a great summer thus far. Depending where you live, maybe it's not your summer, or maybe your summer isn't even that warm. I don't know, but I hope you're having a great June. I'm just fresh back from a week-long trip back to where I grew up, Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. So I have filled up my nature cup. Of course, for those of you that know that I live here in the Cayman Islands, I can't really complain much about the nature here. I do live in paradise, I guess. But being someone born and bred in Canada, there's nothing like the smells of Canada. Like, I looked crazy. I was like sniffing the grass. Like, it's so lush, it's so beautiful. Everything smells great. There's just a crispness in the air. I love it there. Like, it's so beautiful. So it was really nice to be back home and visit. I also attended the wedding of my longest standing best friend ever. So we've been best friends for 23 years. And I got to see her get married. And if you were wondering, I did sob the entire time. It's called having a Cancer moon. So I cried and cried. It was beautiful. That being said, you can probably tell that my voice is a little bit more hoarse than usual. This is the result of, airplane air and scream singing Backstreet Boys and Spice Girls on the wedding dance floor. So I will, of course, attempt my usual singing in Shavasana for you, but just to forewarn you, it may sound a little scraggly today. So today's practice, now that the housekeeping updates are done, today's practice is going to be a yin sequence. And this is actually sort of a two birds, one stone kind of situation. Shout out here to Leah Sugerman, Nomad Yoga School. I will link her information down below if you want to do any teacher trainings. She's got a lot of great videos and online different styles of teacher trainings and things that you can do with her. So this video is actually my submission for my Yin Yoga teacher training, 50 hour, I believe it is, through her. So I figured, why not make it a whole video and then upload it on the YouTube page as well, so that other people can enjoy the practice if they would like, while also having a nice, quick and easy link for my video submission for that. So, hey Leah, how's it going? Welcome. So for today's practice, we will need some props as it is a yin sequence. We're going to be nice and cozy, heavily propped for this one. Of course, always have some water or tea or something like that with you, just in case you get dehydrated. This will be an hour-long practice today. We are going to need a strap today. Of course, if you don't have a yoga strap, you don't need one. You can use the belt of a robe. You can use a towel, anything like that that just gives you a little bit more reach. We just want to extend our reach with this. So find something that you can use as a strap. We will also need 2 blocks today. Again, you do not need a yoga block. You can stack books, you can stack toilet paper. There's so many things that you can kind of find to make this sort of height. You do want it to be a little bit sturdy since we are going to be somewhat putting our body weight on it today. So maybe some heavy books or something like that you can stack up just to get to about just a little lower than your elbow, just general block height. So 2 of those, please. Of course, your yoga mat. You can have a bolster with you or a pillow if you have that. I'm using a folded up blanket. That works for me so that I can kind of have that under my knees as well. And then I also have a little eye pillow for Shavasana. I've put mine in my freezer ahead of time so it's a little bit cool. Whatever might make you feel nice and cozy in your Shavasana. Maybe a folded up blanket for your practice so that you can unfold it and get all nice and warm and cozy for your Shavasana. So that is what you will need today. And with all of that chatter out of the way, let's go ahead and get on our mats and get flowing. Okay, everybody, so we will get started. Just finding a comfortable seat. If you are sitting cross-legged on the floor or something like that, if you notice that your hips are a lot higher than if your knees are a lot higher than your hips, there we go, then you want to make sure that you're coming up onto a prop so we can get that nice anterior tilt to the pelvis and get the knees lower than the hips. Otherwise, you can do this beginning portion in a chair, on your couch, whatever feels the most comfortable for you, whatever is the most comfortable seat for you. We generally just want to ensure that we can focus on the little meditation that we'll do at the beginning and the breathing practice without feeling like we're really hanging on for dear life. So if you're seated right on the floor, you feel like your knees are really high and you're sort of gripping on and your lower back is rounding, you definitely want to come up onto a prop so that we can grow nice and tall out of our high buns here. If we don't have a high bun, your imaginary high bun, come on, everyone's included. So just coming to that nice comfortable seat, we can bring the hands to the knees, maybe palms facing down for grounding or palms facing up for receiving energy. Maybe you clasp the hands in the lap. Again, whatever feels most comfortable for you. We're just gonna slightly tuck the chin just to make sure that we are really growing nice and tall out of the crown of the head. We have a bit of a tendency to feel like we're growing tall by lifting our chin. So we wanna drop the chin, grow the spine nice and tall. Maybe closing down the eyes if that feels safe for you today. And just beginning to cycle the breath in and out through the nose. We generally wanna carry that breath on through the nose today, pending any deviated septums or illnesses, just to keep that parasympathetic nervous system in our calm state when we start breathing heavily through the mouth, especially when we get into more difficult postures. It kind of can get the body into that fight or flight response. So we want to try and keep ourselves as calm as possible, give ourselves the best chance that we can to actually stay in discomfort, stay in more heavy postures today. So cycling that breath in and out through the nose. Just a normal breath, not trying to do anything crazy, not trying to deepen it too much. Just allowing it to flow and be what it is in this moment. And then just gently drawing your attention to the top of the head. Just starting to scan down through the body. Without judgment, we just want to pinpoint any sensation that's present in the body without labeling it as good or bad, just finding sensation. So maybe there's a little bit of tingling somewhere, maybe a little bit of tension on the left shoulder, right wrist. Again, it's not good, it's not bad, it simply is. We just want to paint a picture for ourselves so that when we do start to bring movement, we're just aware of what we might be coming up against with our bodies. So scanning down, observing sensation, not allowing the attention to get stuck there for too long. Just making a note and continuing the body scan. As always, I will take this moment to preemptively apologize for my 4 cats. They seem relatively chill right now, but it seems that whenever my vibes get chill, it somehow re-energizes them to be crazy. So using that as a portion of your meditation throughout the practice, when you hear a sound that draws the attention, maybe pulls you out of it, instead of going, oh, I've wrecked it, my meditation's over, I didn't keep my mind quiet and still for 2 hours without thinking at all. Using that distraction as your meditation. Every time you bring your attention back to the body, back to the breath, that is the meditation, right? So practice, not perfection, right? So completing the end of that body scan, and then just drawing the attention to that anchor point, that point in the body where you most notice the sensation of breath. And this can be different every day. It's just that space where the breath is most noticeable for you, just as a tool to focus your attention a little bit. So maybe it's the nostrils, maybe it's the chest, the belly. Finding that space and just gently focusing your attention there, observing the breath flowing in and out. Observing as the body expands with that inhale, that fresh breath, and contracts on your exhale, letting go. Inhale, creating space, expanding. Exhale, releasing and letting go. I'm going to do a quick breathing exercise here before we get moving. So we're going to move into the Buddha belly breath. And with this one, you can place the hands on the body, one hand on the chest, one hand on the belly. Or you can just leave the hands beside you and focus on the physical sensations without actually feeling them. But if you need a little bit more tactile stimulation here, then placing the hands on the body. So we're going to start deeply inhaling, sending that inhale into the hand on the belly. So filling up your belly, allowing it to expand, giving yourself permission here to take up space. Filling up the belly. Once that breath has completely filled the belly, starting to allow the rib cage, the lungs to expand. Maybe now you lift that chest hand a little bit with the chest on the inhale. And with our exhale, we slowly allow that breath to seep out, feeling as the chest falls, the lungs pull in, and then the belly gently compressing to squeeze that breath out completely. Maybe pausing for a moment on that sensation of empty. And then again, we deeply inhale into that belly hand, filling it up like a balloon, and then allowing the lungs to expand, the chest to rise, fully inhaling, maybe taking an extra sip of air at the top, maybe holding for a moment on this feeling of fullness, and then very slowly beginning to allow that exhale to seep out. The chest drops, the lungs pull in, and the belly compresses. Bringing that breath out, holding for a moment on empty if that feels good. And then again, inhaling into the belly, filling up the lungs, allowing the rib cage to splay open to the sides, allowing the chest to rise. Maybe holding for a moment here, and then allowing that breath to gently seep back out. The chest drops, the belly contracts. I'll do 2 more here on your own pace. Filling up the belly first, all the way up into the chest. And then exhaling, emptying from the chest, down into the belly. Last time. Nice deep inhale. And exhale. Gently returning your hands to wherever they were before, allowing the breath to return to normal. Now taking a nice deep inhale, filling up the body through the nose. Maybe sipping one last little bit of air at the top, and then we open the mouth, let that go. We'll do that twice more, just a nice cleansing breath. Nice deep inhale through the nose. Open the mouth, release. Last time, nice deep inhale, fill up the body. Maybe draw the shoulders up towards the ears here. Really gather up any last bits of tension with that breath. And with your exhale, let it go. Making the eyes open. All right, let's get cracking. We're going to start with a standing posture, and we are going to need both of our blocks here. Depending on your level of flexibility, you may want to bring the floor a little bit closer to you. So perhaps maybe bringing a chair towards you, coming up to your couch or a table, something like that. Making this kind of work for you. So finding where that feels good. We're going to come into dangling posture here with our blocks as support. So of course, we want to plant our feet, come up nice and tall here, before we hinge from the hip. We want to bend into the knees here. We do want a hamstring stretch, but as this is a yin practice, we want to focus more on getting into the connective tissues as opposed to working our muscles here. So this is going to mean holding postures for considerably longer than you would in an Ashtanga practice or a Vinyasa flow, something like that. So we don't want to come to our 100 right away because we are going to be staying in the postures for 2 to 5 minutes depending on the posture. So bending the knees here, even if you think you're the most flexible person on earth, give yourself a little bit of grace here. Allow the belly to come to the legs, bringing the hands to the blocks or your table, your chair, whatever feels good. Noticing here, where is the weight in the feet? Is it all in the heels? Is it all in the toes? Trying to even that out. And now once we're here, if you're like me, we're looking at where our hands landed. We've got the head lifted. We want to dangle here. So we want to allow the neck to release. Allow the blocks to take your weight here. Maybe depending on your flexibility, you bring the forearms to the blocks. Maybe they come to the table, chair, whatever works best for you. But again, we are going to be holding this posture for a little bit. We've got 4 minutes in this one, so ensuring that we're not right up against our wall, fully straightened legs, completely folded in half. Unless that just feels amazing for you, of course, then move towards that if that's something that's very easeful for you. But as we are holding it for a while, ensuring that we give ourselves some staying power. So again, allowing the head to hang, finding some comfort here. It will still be intense, of course, and as we hold the postures for longer, they do get more intense, which is why we want to keep that breath nice and relaxed, in and out through the nose, keeping that fight or flight response from switching on, because that's when the brain starts to get loud. It starts to tell us, I gotta get out of this pose, I gotta get out of here. Allowing yourself to stick with these postures. Of course, if there's pain, if it feels injurious, then exit the posture. And of course, my DMs and everything, the comments here are always open. If you have questions, if something just doesn't feel right and you're not sure why, feel free to reach out and we can troubleshoot that. But if it is simply a sensation of discomfort, I would invite you to challenge yourself a little bit. Try to stay for at least one more breath before you exit a posture. Breathing here. Allowing the upper body to pull towards the ground. Continuing to breathe. Noticing if the mind starts to get really busy here. And of course, always noticing if maybe you did move a little bit too deep into the posture, if you're suddenly feeling like, whoa, that's way too much, then maybe coming back off a little bit. Resetting yourself. And then relaxing into the intensity. Allowing the head to hang. Noticing here if maybe you do want a little bit more intensity. We're about halfway through on this posture, so if you would like to deepen the posture a little bit more, feel free to do so. If it feels good where it is, you don't have to deepen it. Again, Yin is a practice that's a very great one to notice when the ego starts to switch on, especially for those of us who identify as flexi gals and or boys and or people. If you are really kind of stuck in that idea that I'm flexible, you may come into a Yin class and expect to go to your full split and sit there for all of a sudden 5 minutes. Uh-oh.
that gets very intense very fast. So these are the things where we have to kind of allow the ego to take a seat, know that technically, yes, I could go further in this posture, but to hold this posture, to really feel this posture where I want to feel it deeply into the connective tissues, deeply stretching here for this one, I need to back off a little bit to feel more. So keeping really checked in with the body here. Noticing when the ego tries to take over. If you crave deepening, then move towards that. But be aware whether it's your body craving it or it's your ego craving it. That rant being said, we can gently start to tuck the chin in. Maybe if you were on the forearms, bringing the hands to the blocks. Allowing the arms to just dangle here for a moment, moving the blocks out of the way, maybe bending the knees a little bit more, and just chin to chest, tucking the tailbone, ragdoll. We're gonna roll back up to standing, allowing the arms to hang as you roll up. Each vertebra is gently coming up, and the neck and head are the last thing to lift. Rolling the shoulders back here a couple times. Lovely. We're going to come down onto all fours. If you do have tender knees, reaching for a pillow or a folded up blanket like I've got. If you have a lot of tenderness in the wrists, you can always do this seated. We're going to come into some cat-cows. So the idea with cat-cow is that we want that nice undulation in the spine, the opening of the front body, and then the opening of the back body. So this is something that you can do seated if that feels better for you. If you have tender wrists and you don't want to come onto the wrists, take a cross-legged position or a Baddha Konasana, a butterfly pose, and simply undulate the spine back and forth there. So otherwise, coming into all fours, we want to spread out the fingers, ensure that the shoulders are in line with the wrists and the knees are lined up under the hips. Find that neutral spine here where you're gently tucking the belly button towards the spine just to keep the spine neutral. From here, we'll come into our cow. So we'll inhale, draw the shoulders down the back, allowing the belly to drop, opening up through the chest, through the front body. If it feels okay on the neck, lifting the gaze, lifting the tailbone, really allowing the belly to expand here. With our exhale, we come into cat. So we curl the tailbone, bringing the chin to the chest, pressing into the hands to peel the scapula apart here, opening in that space in between the shoulder blades, squeezing belly towards spine, bringing that breath out. And that's all it is. We inhale, we drop the belly, opening the front body. With our exhale, curling in and opening the back body. So with these, you can feel free to close down the eyes if that feels good. Just flowing through these as it works for you. And coming into a bit of intentional movement here. If it feels good to simply move forward and backward like we're doing, then go ahead and do that. Maybe it feels good to kind of stretch the wrists as you do it, rock forward and backward as you do your cat-cows, of course keeping the inhale with our front body open and the exhale when we curve and open the back body. But finding movement that feels good here, maybe playing a little bit. Maybe we start to gaze towards the back hip, drawing the shoulder and the hip together, and then arching up through center, inhaling around, creating a circle with the rib cage here. Maybe that feels really good. Maybe it feels good to bend one elbow and the other. Maybe it feels good to lift the feet, really come forward and backward. Finding that movement that feels nice and juicy, feels like it's opening up the spine, maybe the rib cage as well, maybe the hips. Just flowing through a few more of these. And then completing your last exhale. Coming back to your neutral spine. We're just gonna sit back on the heels for a moment if this feels okay. Otherwise, maybe rolling over and sitting right onto your bum, just to kind of stretch the wrists back out. So we're going to come into sort of a peace hands, but the opposite way. So we're bringing the tops of the hands together, pressing the elbows down. And this is gonna really stretch down the forearms and the fronts of the hands here, sort of doing the opposite of what we were doing in our tabletop position. So reversing that stretch. And then just shaking out the wrists. Beautiful. We're gonna come into dragonfly here. So if you would like, depending on how hard your floor is, you might want to stay sat on your blanket. We don't want to come up too high onto a block or anything like that. Just maybe a little bit of elevation, just so that we're not sitting right on our little hamstring attachments, straight on a hard floor. So coming to a wide-legged position or dragonfly. Noticing here what feels good for you width-wise. So for me, I like to have my legs quite far open. That feels really nice in my groin, a nice groin stretch. I also really like to flex my toes. I love a hamstring stretch. If that doesn't feel good for you and your hamstrings are screaming at you, you can always bend the knees here. You can place blocks, pillows under the knees to keep them bent. You can also just let the feet do what they want and just kind of let them be free as opposed to keeping them very active. When we do come into this posture, the hold of this posture, we want less focus on the feet here. This isn't meant to be a vinyasa style version of this posture, so it doesn't need to be active. We're not trying to work our muscles. So my natural go-to in this is to make it an active, like, oh, here I am. But then as I come into the yin version, I sort of let it go. We don't need the feet to be flexing up to the ceiling and anything like that. If you want to reach for a block or a pillow, maybe 2 blocks, again, depending on your flexibility and your comfort level with this, we can always move around to find our comfort level. Again, if you're quite flexible, I do this posture a lot in vinyasa classes. So for me, I'm like, great, I'm great at this one. I go straight down. In a yin practice, we're holding this one for 5 minutes. All of a sudden, oh, okay. It's a lot. So not coming to our 100 straight away. Finding that sort of window, that wall where we're like, okay, I can sit here for a while. And then maybe once we're a couple minutes in, maybe now I deepen a little bit, but it makes it a little bit more sustainable than going straight in and grinding your teeth through the whole thing. We still want to have some ease, right? It's yoga. So maybe finding your block or something that you can come forward onto. Maybe you've got a big stack of pillows, whatever feels good for you. We do want to grow nice and tall first to ensure that we're coming out of our hips as opposed to just crunching over. So we grow nice and tall out of the hip joints. I always like to say try to come forward as far as you can with a flat back. Maybe that's like to here, that's fine. We want to keep that back flat again to ensure that we are coming out of the hip joints. Now, once you find that space, we inhale, we create a little bit more space, a little bit more ease, and then with our exhale, we can sink. So maybe finding the forearms on the block here. Again, not finding your 100, not slamming that body flat on the ground if that's a possibility for you. Finding that space where you can stay comfortably for a little while. Again, we'll be in this posture for about 5 minutes on this one. So just ensuring that we're not killing ourselves as we're trying to chase the ego of it. We want to be able to really allow the muscles to slowly start to seep into the posture, to slowly lengthen as we relax here. And of course, maybe these types of postures aren't relaxing for you. I come from a dance background. A split sort of posture is natural for me. This feels great. Catch me in a hip opener, she's angry. So of course, if I'm saying this and you're like, what are you talking about? getting your body flat on the ground. I'm back here on a pillow when I'm struggling. That's still the posture, you're still doing it, and that's perfect for your body. Find what feels good for you, right? It's only your journey. You are the only person that matters here on your yoga mat. I am simply here as a guide. So if anything doesn't feel good, if anything's not working for you, you don't have to do it, right? Find something that works better. So hopefully my rantings are helping to distract you a little bit from the postures. Maybe they're not. And of course, just allowing that breath to flow. Noticing if you do start to grip anywhere, if you start to clench the jaw. Letting that go, trying to release something here, even if it's just the left big toe. Let something go, a tiny little piece of tension. Let one more thing go here. Here you feel like, you know what, I can go a little deeper here. I would like a little bit more intensity, so maybe you deepen the posture slightly. See how that feels. Maybe it's too far and you have to come back off a little bit, that's fine. Trying to find that space so that you can settle back in. Breathing through the sensation. Sending the breath into the hamstrings, into the groin. As you sink forward. Continuing to use the breath to allow you to stay in this posture, even if it's starting to grow quite intense, maybe noticing if the mind is starting to grow quite busy as well. Just returning the attention back to the breath, back to the sensations in the body. Last full round of breath here. And then we'll gently start to come out, taking your time, lifting the body up. Maybe leaning back on the hands, drawing the feet up, knees bent, and just windshield wipering the knees for a moment, just to release that stretch. Beautiful, and we're gonna come into deer pose here. So you may want to prop this one. I'll give you some options. This is also in the physiotherapy world known as 90-90. So you may have heard that if you go to physio for hip issues or anything like that. So generally just making 90-degree bends with the legs. This is one way to do this. We then want to try to rotate the hip and sit that sit bone down. This front leg doesn't really matter. You can even straighten it if that feels better. We want to feel this nice sensation, this internal rotation of our hip here in the back leg. So that's sort of what we're focusing on most, just in the standard sitting up version of this posture. If you would like to prop it, you can reach for blocks or bolsters. Maybe tossing a blanket on top of your blocks just to make it a little bit more comfortable. And then we're gonna come into, I like to think of it more as like a little mermaid posture as opposed to a deer pose. So we still sort of want that idea of our hips being lined up this way, but we're gonna turn it into a little bit more of a twist. And of course it depends on what sensation you would like to feel in this. I like to sort of deal with my internal rotation because I don't have that great of internal rotation and it's not something that I naturally go to. So I like to kind of work with it when the moment presents itself. But if you would prefer more of a reclined, twisting kind of version, you're gonna bring your hip up to the end of your bolster or blocks, start to rotate the upper body, and then maybe you start to come down with the chest onto the blocks. Maybe you keep the head in the same direction as the knees. If it feels okay, and be very gentle here with the neck, and you want a little bit more twist, maybe you move the head in the opposite direction. Maybe, depending on how you have it set up, you can just bring the face down. Maybe that feels good. But noticing the difference between these two postures. This brings the stretch sort of more into the side body a little bit. It becomes less of an internal rotation stretch and more of a twist, more of a side body, side back. And maybe that's what sensation you're looking for today. So finding what version of this posture you want to do, what kind of stretch you are looking for, what kind of sensation you're looking for, and moving towards that. Finding that space there, and then settling in. Allowing the breath to bring you into that almost meditative state with the postures, even if they do grow quite intense, even if it feels like the mind is screaming at you. Like I said at the beginning of the practice, every time you notice the mind trying to take you out of it, the ego trying to move you out of it, take that sensation, take those thoughts, say, thanks for the info, we're not doing that right now. Bring the attention back to the breath, bring the attention back to the body. Really experience what's happening, what sensations are present. And of course, people hold their tension in different areas. The hips are probably one of the more common spaces where people do hold their tension, so it's always my favorite spot to kind of remind people that if you are someone who holds a lot of tension in your hips, a lot of emotions in your hips, you may notice emotions start to move as you start to release that. So you may notice as you're sitting here, you start to get a little bit angry. Maybe you're thinking to yourself, I wish she would just shut up and move to the other side. I hate her. I promise you, I can take it. So if that's how you're feeling, I would invite you, instead of labeling that as, oh, anger, it's a bad emotion, we don't like that, let's move back towards being happy. I don't agree. I think all emotions are here to be experienced. So if you find that you're getting a little bit angry, just allow that to be present. If you find maybe sadness comes up, allow yourself to cry. Crying can be so cathartic. Maybe you do have a bubbling up of laughter come out. Or maybe you don't feel anything and you're going, what is this crazy hippie talking about? That's fine too. Whatever is present, allow it to be what is happening. The only real thing right now is this moment. So really fully experience it. And if you are taking the version of this posture where you're really feeling that internal rotation, sitting back into that hip, being very gentle here, noticing if you feel sensation in the knee. We don't want to be pulling on our knee at all here. So maybe it feels better to extend that leg out. Maybe it feels better to pull it in closer. Maybe this just doesn't feel good for your knee, and then maybe take the other version. Really paying attention to spaces where we don't want to be feeling sensation in these postures and noticing if they're pain. We don't need to be pushing through that. There's no version of this posture that's good to feel pain in the knee. That's not going to bring you enlightenment. It's not going to bring you deeper in your practice. It's going to bring you closer to injury, right? So we want to make sure that we're not pushing ourselves farther than we need to go in postures that are hurting us, right? So if your knees can't take this kind of internal rotation, maybe take the twisting version, and that'll take a little bit of pressure off the knee. Again, noticing if there's space here to deepen. If you're in this sitting up internal rotation kind of version, to deepen this, maybe you start to twist over the leg, again being very gentle with the knee. Maybe you even start to lean over it. That's a heck no for me, but maybe that feels good for your hips. So finding that deepening if you want it. The option is there, doesn't mean you have to take it, right? Breathing into the sensation. And then if you are in the twisted version, gently bringing the head back to center, pressing into the hands, lifting yourself up. If we're in the sitting up version, we're kind of gonna do the opposite, start to lean away from that hip. We're all gonna meet with our legs forward, straightening the legs out, and maybe giving them a little jiggle. Just releasing that hip. And then we're gonna switch sides. So, we wanna bring the other leg forward into that 90-90, or we roll over, bring the opposite hip to the blocks, and start to bring ourselves into that twist. Again, very gently moving with the neck if you are twisting the head. And again, noticing the knee if you are taking this sitting up version of this. So maybe on one side you didn't notice anything, maybe on the other side you do. The sides of the body are different. They're both legs, but that doesn't mean they're the same thing, right? So maybe one knee can't handle this posture, so maybe you take the twisted version on this other side. Really staying tuned into what's present in your body specifically. Breathing. Allowing yourself to stay present. Noticing if the mind is starting to tell you stories, narratives. Allowing the attention to come back into the present, into the breath. Noticing if the jaw is clenching, letting that go. Noticing if you're starting to feel like you want to go a little bit deeper in the posture, maybe twisting a little bit further, maybe twisting over the leg, or maybe staying exactly where you are. Continuing to breathe. Again, if you're in the twisted version, just gently bringing the head back to center first. And pressing yourself up. If we're in the sitting up version, we're going to start to lean away from that hip. All of us bringing both legs around to the front and giving those a little wiggle. Beautiful.
Lovely. Keeping our props close here. We don't need our blocks right this second. We're going to come down onto the belly, keeping our strap close by. And we're just going to loop the strap around one of our feet. You can choose whichever side you want to start with. Just make sure that you remember which side you started with, because that's always a bit of a conundrum when you realize you have no idea and you kind of end up doing the same thing again. So we're going to come into cat pulling its tail. So this is a really nice quad stretch. It stretches nice down the front of the hip flexor and can be really nice to use the strap also to assist you if it is something that you want to move towards, maybe in your pigeon posture or something, to reach for that foot, but you always can't quite get it. Using a strap can be really nice and helpful for that. So to set up for this, we want to come down onto the belly, choose a side to loop our strap around the top of the foot. Now this one's going to be somewhat of an open posture. So we're going to start to roll towards this lower foot. You'll notice that I just switched my grip so that I'm kind of keeping my elbows on the ground, that I'm pulling this back foot towards me. See what feels good for you. I'm going to switch them over my other shoulder. And then I'm going to start to roll towards that back leg. So rolling towards that back leg, we're keeping that bottom leg bent up. We're bringing the strap over in a diagonal across the body. Maybe you reach down towards the foot. Maybe the foot is accessible here and you just want to grab the foot, but the strap is there to help you. We're going to bring this top leg here. Instead of leaving it straight, we're going to bend it up and start to sort of roll towards it. If you want, like I've got myself set up here, you can place one hand under the head, peeling that top shoulder open to reach for that back leg, the bottom leg. If you were to lay on your side, it would be the bottom leg that you're grabbing and the top leg that's bending up. And again, maybe you're holding onto the straps here, pulling that back foot towards the bum. Maybe you can reach for the foot. And then sort of just let go here. Allow the gravity of that foot to pull the shoulder open while holding onto that strap, or the foot is really stretching the front of that quad. Breathing into this. Maybe you want to relax the head down onto a block or the floor. Find what feels good for you. And just relax into that. Noticing if there's space for deepening here and you would like to deepen, moving towards that now. Otherwise, just staying where you are, breathing into the sensations. And then we'll just gently slip that strap off of the foot, extending it down long, starting to sort of untwist, straightening the other leg, coming down onto the belly. Beautiful. What we do to one, we must do to the other. Those are the laws of yoga. I don't make the rules here. So we got to do it again, you guys. We're going to start to roll onto our side again.
Apologies, I didn't set this up great on the other side. Always with twists, it can get a little bit confusing. So that's why we kind of make sure that we make a note of what leg we start with always, so that when you go to roll around again, you're like, wait, which one did I do? So again, we're choosing that bottom leg. We're gonna bend it a little bit, get the strap around it. From here, this little top leg we've got, we're gonna bend that up, sort of so we're twisting open here. Then we bring that strap maybe over the shoulder, maybe this feels good, but we do sometimes like to have that nice opening across the shoulder and the chest. If that doesn't feel good, keeping the shoulder rotated forward, maybe you just pull the strap towards you like this and you're doing more of just a quad. I like to open my shoulder. For me, my foot is close enough that I can reach for it. So I'll hold on to my foot, and then I just support my head. And from here, I just release. I sink into this posture. Again, I allow that gravity of this bent leg to pull my shoulder open while the pressure of my hand on my foot is bringing that nice stretch to the front of my quad. If you want to feel a little bit more stretch in the front of the quad without having to pull and activate the arm, you can just simply think of tucking the tailbone and pressing the hips towards the floor. That's going to bring more sensation into the front of that leg. So again, finding comfort here. Maybe it's comfortable for you to stack onto your hand like I'm sitting here, or maybe you want to bring a block under the head. Maybe you want to extend the arm and just allow the neck to release. Finding where that feels best for you, and then releasing there. So finding that space where you can let go. And breathe into the posture. Noticing if the mind starts to get busy. We've only got a little while left here, so we've only got 2 more postures left after this. Of course, that's the trick of yin. You have no idea how long that actually means. Power's gone straight to my head, you guys. But there are only 2 postures yet left. We only have a few minutes left in the practice. So if the mind does start to get busy, if it starts to create lists, what do I need to do after this? What's that sound in my house? What are my kids doing? What are my pets doing? We've only got a few minutes left here. So try and tell the brain, you know what, I'll get to it. I'm not saying I don't want to think about this ever, and I'll never allow this busyness to come back into my mind. But just for right now, I'm not doing it. I'm focusing on my body. I'm focusing on the present moment. I'm focusing on my breath. If there's space for deepening in this posture and you would like to move towards a little bit more, maybe moving towards that now, maybe staying where you are if that feels good. And then again, we'll just gently remove the strap, straightening that bottom leg, and beginning to straighten that top leg. And instead, this time, we're gonna roll the opposite way, coming onto our backs. So, just gonna pull the knees up towards the chest for a moment, maybe rocking side to side here. Just allowing that twist to release. Maybe making circles with the hips for a moment. Just releasing that twist. Now we're gonna come into my all-time favorite posture. This is the reclined supported fish. I find this so delicious. You do need some props here. We're gonna pretty much use all of our props in this. This is also an option to stay here for your Shavasana if you like it, but I will let you know when to switch into your Shavasana if you want to take a more standard Shavasana as opposed to staying here. We're gonna set up our blocks depending on how much opening you like in your chest, how flexible your back is. Move towards the most comfort level for you. I like to have the block under my head quite high, as when my head goes back I get a little bit of swimmer's nose, but maybe you like the sensation of your head
going back, opening through the throat. Maybe that feels good. Herman, he also loves supported fish. Fun fact, it's his favorite yoga pose. So he's gonna get right on my blanket just as I need it, and then I'm gonna feel like a terrible mother for taking it from him. Sorry, my darling. Sorry. Ooh, now the internet hates me. Okay, we toss that blanket or bolster onto those blocks just to bring a little bit more comfort. Now, I love to do this with a strap. You may enjoy that also. Personally, I like to take my legs in a Baddha Konasana, bound ankle, a butterfly pose. That's just the soles of the feet together, the knees out wide. In this posture, if like me, you have a little bit of tighter hips, so you can see that my knees are quite high here, I'm kind of curving in the lower back. It's not a natural pose for me to be able to stay in without props. So this strap here is going to help with that. Sorry, let me tell you what I've just done. So I bring the strap around my lower back here, and I've looped it in just like you would to keep the tension on the strap. From there, I need to loosen it a little bit. I'm going to take the strap. Sorry, I'm saying this very, very slowly. This part is actually like a little bit confusing sometimes, like when you don't like think it through, so that's why I'm talking to you like you're a child. We're gonna take this loop that we've created and bring it over the feet. So we want that down by the ankles. From there you can tighten. Of course, don't tighten too much, because the thing is, if it's a little too tight for your own flexibility, when you go back, all of a sudden the feet are coming off the ground. So we line up with our blocks. We want the lower portion of our block to be right around where our bra strap would end if you're someone who wears a bra, sort of mid-back. We don't want to get into the lower back. We don't want any crunching there. And you'll sort of notice as you lay down, if it feels like it's in the right space. That's too low for me, I already know, so I kind of shift myself down. I also shift myself around to ensure that it's in the center of my back. From here, I maybe move the headpiece a little bit, and feel free to wiggle around. Find where it feels good. If it feels like the block is like stabbing into your back and you're like cracked in half, you obviously don't want to stay there for very long, right? So find comfort in this. Maybe you've put the blocks too high, maybe you've put the blocks too low and you want a little bit more heart opening. Find where it feels good. As you can see here, hopefully the blanket's not in the way, with the curvature of my back, my lumbar spine starts more down here. So I'm not in my lumbar spine with the blocks at all. So there is obviously still sensation there because I have my legs up. If you have your legs out straight, you'll still feel some sensation in the lower back. If you don't want any sensation in the lower back, bringing the knees up, maybe feet mat width apart and the knees falling in towards each other, that'll take some tension off the lower back. So if you have your legs in your bound angle like I do, maybe pulling the strap a little bit tighter here. And you'll notice with this, now that we've moved into it, it kind of holds the feet in this posture without you having to put in any effort. So that's kind of the joy of this posture. I need to tighten my strap a little bit and it's not doing what I want it to, which is always fun. Come out. Ugh. So sometimes the strap gets almost too tightened and then it won't move, so just finding where that feels good, getting those wiggles out, finding that place of comfort, allowing the arms to drop open. This is going to allow the chest to really open here. And then just finding that place of stillness here, finding that comfort. And of course, always staying tuned into the body. This is my favorite version of this posture, but I'm actually noticing today that in my groin, my hip flexor on the one side, it's actually not really jiving with the Baddha Konasana legs today, so I'm actually gonna slip my feet out of the strap and try a straight leg. That feels a little bit better on my hips today. So not being married to any one thing either. That is my favorite version, but I notice laying there that I'm actually almost kind of cringing a little bit in the posture. We don't want that. We wanna find comfort. We wanna find ease. And then finding stillness, sinking into the posture, feeling the chest opening, that heart space opening. Settling in here. happy. Opening of that heart space. Maybe all of a sudden you've got a cat standing on your chest, like I do. It's the joys of animals. They can always sense when your vibes get nice and chill, and then they want to be a part of it. Staying tuned in with the present sensations here. Finding the enjoyment in the stillness. And this is the part where if you want to stay here, you can for your Shavasana. If you would like to take a more standard Shavasana, then just bringing the knees up, planting the feet, and maybe rocking yourself to one side to come off of the blocks, removing them. And then of course there's always options in Shavasana, either extending the arms out to the sides, the feet out long. Maybe if there's tension in the lower back, you bring the knees up, bringing the feet mat width apart and letting the knees drop in towards each other. Maybe Shavasana on your back doesn't feel safe and you want to roll over onto your front. Or maybe you want to stay in the fetal position, finding that place of comfort where you can simply rest, breathe, allow the integration of the practice to wash over you. Allow that beautiful stillness settling in. And some people think of this posture as, it's just laying on the floor. It's not that hard. However, some of us may know that Shavasana can actually be one of the hardest postures to take because this is the one where we are still. There's nothing for the mind to focus on here. So this is a place where maybe the mind does start to get the loudest. So just staying aware of that, maybe moving towards a mantra to help you keep your attention just on the breath. With your inhales, I am. With your exhales, relaxed. I am. Relax. I am. Svaha Tatsaviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimmahi Yo Yo Na Prachodayat Om Bhurvasvaha Svaha Tatsaviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimmahi Yo Yo Na Prachodayat Om Bhurvasvaha Tatsaviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimmahi Yo Yo Na Prachodayat Om Bhurvasvaha Tatsaviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimmahi Yo Yo Na Prachodayat Gently bring the attention back into the body, deepening the breath. Knowing that if you're not ready for movement, if you would like to stay in Shavasana on your own, please feel free to do so. If you are ready to bring movement, starting with some small movements, maybe rocking the head gently side to side. Rolling the wrists and ankles. Maybe reaching the arms up overhead, taking a nice full body stretch, letting out any sighs or yawns. And drawing the knees up towards the chest, maybe giving yourself a little squeeze here. If you are still in your supported fish posture, just gently rolling yourself to one side, coming down off of your props. If you are flat on the ground, then just rolling over onto one side. Coming into the fetal position just for a moment here, just to recenter the body, taking a few breaths here. And when you're ready, just using your hands to help press you up, finding a comfortable seat. Just keeping the eyes heavy or lowered, or fully closed if that feels okay. If it's in your practice, bringing the hands to Anjali Mudra, heart center. Alternatively, you can place the hands flat on the chest, feeling the beat of the heart. Just bowing the head slightly here, taking a moment to feel gratitude for yourself, for taking time out of your day to move your body to do this practice. And feeling gratitude for your body, for its ability to move you through your day, through your life. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. May all beings everywhere be happy and free. The light in me bows to the light in you. Namaste. Thank you so much for joining me today, everybody. I hope you enjoyed the practice. If you have any questions, as always, you can find me on Instagram at harmonioushippie, Hippy. And of course, you can always comment on the YouTube video if you have any questions about specific postures or the practice of Yin, anything to chat with you about that. Of course, as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, I will be linking Leah Sugerman, her information. Like I said, she's got a lot of great courses on her site, and you can do teacher trainings and that kind of thing through her as well. And she also does in-person teacher trainings and stuff. I think she's got one coming up in Bali, I want to say in 2024, so there's cat hair in my mouth as usual. So I will link her information below. You should go and check her out as well. Fingers crossed on my submission. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this class. Hopefully she enjoys this class. And I will hopefully be uploading videos a little bit more often now that I'm back from traveling. And I would also like to give a nice little shout out for Herman for the little assist that he gives me throughout my practice. It's always kind of touching when you're in a posture. My favorite is when I'm in pigeon pose and all of a sudden he comes and sits on my back and just like gets me a little bit deeper in the pose. I'm always immediately sobbing. So I think the common theme is that I'm just always crying in a good way. So thank you so much, everyone. Have a wonderful evening, day, wherever you are. And I will see you again soon. Thank you. Namaste.